Let's start the class with 3 ohms and a prayer. Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So today we are going to see a text called Vivekchudamani. This is a text written by Adi Shankaracharya. And as you probably know, he lived almost 2000 years ago. His exact birth date is not known. Some say he was born 44 years before the current century. That means before, it is 44 BC, before Christ. And then he died 12 before Christ. That means this entire 2000 years which we live, which we know after the Christ, which is the years which we know after Christ's death. So roughly we can say Shankaracharya lived 2000 years ago, but even today, his works are very, very famous, especially in the field of the Indian scriptural study. Normally, we say Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads are the primary texts which we need to study when we come to the spiritual study in India. The Vedas are very, very ancient, but the essence of the Vedas are there in the Upanishads. It's very difficult to study the Upanishads directly without any background of the means to study them. Because for any science, we need to know what are the terminologies used. So Adi Shankaracharya, he was a pioneer who could create a complete dictionary of terms to teach the Vedas. This book which we are studying now, this text which we are studying, is one of the Prakarana Granthas, that means a textbook which deals with the methodology of teaching. We have studied so far Tattvabodha and Atmabodha. I would say that this would be a combination of both Tattvabodha and Atmabodha. So for those of you who are interested to do a self-study, this would be an ideal text to do self-study in the field of Vedanta, which is called as the science of life. What does the word Vivekchudamani means? We will see that in our presentation today. I propose to take this presentation in 3 ways. The first one is a summary of the whole text. That means I will just give you a running summary of the bird's eye view of this entire text. The second is I will take the 10 main meditational verses and just give you a short meaning of those verses so that you can use them for meditation. And then the last portion is basically for those of you who want to study this text, but studying this text will take at least 2 to 3 years, just one text, because this is a very, very huge text. And if you want to read, you want to understand the commentary of this text properly, then it is going to take a long time. This text consists of 581 verses. So it's a long text. What I did here was condense the important verses into 70 verses, 70. So instead of studying 581 verses, you study about 70 verses, which will give you the gist of this entire text. Commentaries on these have been given by several teachers in the past. Deepak, one of our participants here, he sent one of the commentaries on the same text of Vivekchudamani for circulation to the group, which was printed in 1921, 100 years ago, by Swami Madhavananda. So those of you who are in the group can see this wonderful translation of this entire text called as Vivekchudamani. 100 years ago, somebody has written a commentary and it's still available. And there are several other commentaries which are also available, both from Chinmaya Mission, Ramakrishna Mission, and several other schools which teach Vedanta in India. But here, what I have done is a simple 70 verses. If you can go through them, it'll be a good background to the spiritual study which you will undertake through the Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. So once you understand these concepts which are there in this particular text called as Vivekchudamani, they will serve you to understand the higher texts much more easily than what you can do without this text. Okay. As usual, I present this in a format, in this diagrammatic format. The 581 verses are divided into 8 topics. The first topic is called as Utbodhgataha, that is introduction. And the last one is Upasamhara, conclusion. So in between introduction and conclusion, there are 6 topics. Almost 70 verses Shankaracharya uses just to introduce the topic. Then from 72 to 209 is a wonderful presentation of a student who wants to know who am I, and his 7 questions. Sapta Prashnaha, and Uttarani means answer. A student asks the teacher, usually in many of the Upanishads, you will always find a student and a guru, a dialogue between them. Most of the Upanishads, you will find it's a dialogue between a student, a spiritual seeker, and his guru. And many a times you will find that even understanding the questions of the seekers is itself a very, very big study. It's a very deep study, because those type of questions we will never be able to ask to our gurus. So we will know, there's a lot of depth in the questions itself. We will see the questions in the Vivekchudamani in this particular second section. The third section is the Mahavakyam, which means those of you who have studied the Tattvabodha, we know what it is. It is the oneness between the Jiva, the individual soul, and the entire universe, which is represented by Paramatma. How does one see the oneness? It is generally through a Mahavakyam. Mahavakyam means these are the sentences which are called as Mahavakyam from the Upanishad, great sentences, which are revealing the truth of this entire universe. The fourth section is a meditation session. It is an assimilation after the teaching of this oneness. 254 to 417. And then what happens to a student after he has done this assimilation? Assimilation is basically removing the false notions that I am the body, I am the mind. So it is a very deliberate exercise. And once a student does this exercise, what is the result of it? The result is called as mukti or moksha. Mukti means liberation, liberation from the feeling of inadequacy, feeling of finiteness, feeling of non-fulfillment in life. So we all are having a feeling that there is something missing in us. We are always not fulfilled. We want something more, something more, something more. And then we keep on taking several actions in life in order to remove this feeling of inadequacy in us. That is what is going to be described as the bondage in us. We will see the meaning. It's a very beautiful text which defines exactly what the human problem is. So this section from 418 to 478 is the benefit a student gets after he has grasped the entire teaching. And from 479 to 519, Kritaknyata means gratitude to the teacher. It's a Dhanyavada Arpanam. That means the student feels very, very happy. And once he has known that he is not the body or mind, but he is ever free, so he thanks the teacher who has taught him this freedom, who has taught him how to remove this inadequacy in himself. Then the parting advice to the disciple is given by the teacher, Ashirvada, 520th verse number 520 to 575. And as I said before, the last section is the conclusion section. So it's a very well structured text. It's a beautiful text if somebody wants to do a self-study. You can do a self-study in most of it if you have got some insight after listening to somebody, the Tattvabodha and Atma Bodha. This is the best text to take before entering Bhagavad Gita and Upanishads. usually what happens is what happens in this text is it only tells you what are the problems, what are the qualifications required, but it doesn't tell you how to get those qualifications. The best textbook for getting the qualifications for a student would be the study of Bhagavad Gita, where in the first 6 chapters of the Gita, you get the Karma Yoga. I mean, I'm just giving you a small sidetrack to the Bhagavad Gita text, where a student will try to prepare himself for the study. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are Karma Yoga. The second 6 chapters from 7 to 12 are Upasana Yoga, which will train the mind. You see, our mind is the main instrument which we need to use when we do spiritual study. So the second group, 7 to 12 chapters, will teach us how to sharpen our mind. With a sharpened mind, that means after having prepared the mind, then the student is ready for the third section of the Gita, which is the Jnana Yoga part, from chapter 13 to 18. So the entire Gita is divided into 3 portions. The last portion is the Jnana Yoga portion. And in this Vivekchudamani, we will get the Jnana Yoga portion also in the section called Mahavakyam. That means in the verses 210 to 253, the entire oneness which is available in the Gita, in the Upanishad, is also here. So with this short bird's eye view of this entire text, I will go to each of these topics in today's summary and then give you a gist of the topics. The first topic is the introduction part. Vivekchudamani. Chudamani means it's a crest jewel. Viveka means discrimination. So this text is called as the crest jewel of discrimination. What is the discrimination? Those people who have done the Tattva will know discrimination means how to see this world. Today we see the world as if the world exists independent of me, the body. But then the scriptures will teach us that the world is not independent, but the world is dependent on the observer. And who is the observer? I am the observer. I, the consciousness principle, am the observer of this entire universe. This entire universe does not exist without me, the observer consciousness. Not without me, the body or the mind, but without me, the consciousness. This difference before the study of the real world, that means the difference between the real and the unreal, that is called as Viveka. Viveka means discrimination between the real thing which exists. The real thing is the observer, the consciousness principle, and the unreal is the world. This discrimination is what is required by a student to reach moksha. So the text which deals with the discriminative function of the intellect is called as the is called as Vivekchudamani. Chudamani means crest, jewel, like a king or a queen will wear, like a king or queen will wear a headgear, a crown. A jnani, a wise man, will wear this Vivekchudamani. Vivekchudamani means he will wear this discrimination, crown of discrimination, and he will lead the life. He or she will lead the life. And how the life will be different? Because the life will not be a life of bondage to the body or mind, but it will be a life of freedom. Mukta Purushaha. So one will be free from the tyrannies of the mind and can enjoy the life of, which is enjoy the whole universe which is created by the Lord. So with that simple meaning of Vivekchudamani, now let's see what other things which we need to study in this first section. One very important thing which Shankaracharya mentions in this first section is, he says that the glory of human birth is that it can reach the pinnacle of fulfillment in life. Living beings are plant, animals, birds, human beings, and then devatas are also there. But what is the best of these human beings is that the janma, the birth of a human as a human being, the glory of that is it can discriminate, it can act, it can act as per the will. Animals are generally pre-programmed. They live by instincts, and that's all. They cannot think and act. Most of the animals is by instinct. They just act. That's all. Whereas the human intellect is very well developed. What Shankaracharya says is, by having this human birth, if we just waste our life in dharma, artha, moksha, dharma, artha, kama. These are the three goals of all human beings. Dharma means doing rituals, doing puja, doing right things, doing duty. This is all dharma. You do dharma, you do good things in life. And generally what the people say is, if you do well, if you do good things in this life, then you will go to heaven or you'll go to Swarga. That is dharma. Artha means you earn wealth. So one of the second goal of human being is earn wealth to have a comfortable life. Then kama. Kama means it is entertainment, fulfilling desires to entertain the sense organs. The last one is moksha. So most of us, we are involved in artha and kama. Of course, we do our dharma in the sense we do whatever is the duty, we do it. Very, very, very few of us will say that I want to know who am I? And I want to know, is there any way I can not be born again in the universe? Most of us, almost all the religions, they believe, philosophers also, they believe in rebirth. But having seen the misery of this life, especially disease and death, a lot of people would like to say that I don't want this type of life at all. So is there any way by which I will not come back into this body again, this type of body again? So that is what is called as moksha, purushartha. So Shankaracharya says, if you spend all your life from birth to death only on artha and kama, that means in earning wealth and entertaining and just enjoying life, that is not the right goal of life. Because then it is almost like an animal life. In fact, the animals, they can have a better organ satisfaction than human beings. So human birth is validated only by utilizing this birth for liberation from rebirth. Therefore, Shankaracharya says that spiritual growth is essential for a human being. And it is not a revolution that you can get spiritual growth within a week or 2 weeks, or take a tablet and then you can get spiritually involved. No, it is not a revolution, it's evolution. It's a very gradual process. So the discovery of the first stage, that means discovery of the stage where I know that I need something else in life apart from wealth and entertainment. And that is moksha purushartha. Now, after realizing this, I need to, if I need liberation from rebirth, then I need to, the second stage is, I need to understand how I can get moksha. The scriptures tell us that moksha is possible only through jnanam. Jnanam means with the study of who am I, this freedom is possible, and the desire of moksha is converted then in the second stage from a desire of freedom to desire for jnanam, desire for knowledge. And the third stage is this knowledge can be attained only through scriptures. And keeping the scriptures as the mirror, the scriptures promise us that we will show you, scriptures tell us that I will show you how you are free. How if you look at the scriptures, you will study the scriptures and use it like a mirror. Like how would you see your own face in the mirror and see a reflection, and then you put chandan, or you put vibhuti, or you put you put kumkumam. So like that, we use the Shastra mirror. Shastra here means the teachings of the Upanishads or teaching of Bhagavad Gita. If you use that, then it will teach you, it will show you that you are a free person, ever free. You were free before birth, you are free now, and you will be free when you quit this body. That is the promise of the scriptures. So from the desire for moksha, from the desire of freedom, you come to desire for knowledge. From knowledge, you say, I need to study the scriptures. So then the fourth stage is what? If you study the scriptures by yourself, you will not understand. Therefore, you need a guru, somebody to teach you. Like the sun is required to open a lotus bud. You cannot open a lotus bud by just piercing it or something, but the sun, if you allow the lotus to be exposed to the sunlight, it will bloom by itself. So Vedanta is Vedanta can be studied under a guru. Therefore, Shankaracharya says, Tasmai Guruve Namaha. That means I bow down to the teacher who can teach me how I can know that I am always free. So the Shastra then opens up the presence of a guru, and then what happens is the guru starts teaching. So this entire introduction talks about finding, it talks about having a desire to be free in life. To be free means not bound by the mind's agitations. That is the basic meaning of freedom. Then, how do I find an appropriate guru? Is it available in the Google? I can just Google and say, okay, I want to have a guru today. Then, there'll be 20 gurus who will come up, and then you just call them up and say, okay, can I, start a conversation? And then, it's not possible. They say that the guru comes to us by the grace of the Lord. It just happens. Then the seeker is ready. They say that the guru will stand right in front. So for all of us, we don't have to worry whether we have a guru or we don't have a guru. Don't worry. When the time is right, we will find somebody in front, and he will be the guru for us, who will take us through this entire journey. Then the first section talks also about the qualifications of the guru and the disciple. And after the main qualifications, as you probably know, I will just touch upon them. The 4 qualifications we have studied is discrimination, the 4 Ds, yeah? For all those you who have done Tattva Bodha, it's very easy. The qualification of the disciple is he should have the discrimination ability to understand what is real, what is permanent, which is Atma, and what is impermanent, which is the body and the mind. He should have this basic discrimination. Then the second D stands for dispassion. Dispassion means he should have the vairagyam, he should be able to pull himself away from the world to study more about the scriptures, about Atma. What is that permanent thing called as Atma? That is the second qualification, which is called as dispassion. The third qualification is discipline. Discipline means having the ability to control the mind, control the sense organs. These are the 2 main disciplines which we need to develop to understand what is Atma. The other disciplines I discussed, we will also see it in the later verses. We will see what are the definitions of all this, like Shraddha, faith, Uparama, Titisha. These are all things which will come later. But here, just to tell you what are the 4 qualifications of a student. The last qualification is the 4th D, which is desire, mumukshutvam. Desire means I have a desire to be free from this mind. So these 4 Ds, once again to repeat, discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire. These are the 4 essential qualifications of a student, of a disciple, of a person who wants to learn the Vedas or learn the scriptures. And what are the qualifications of the guru? The guru means the teacher. The teacher should be well versed in the scriptures. Well versed means he should know, he should have studied the Upanishads, he should have studied the Gita, he should have studied the Brahma Sutras, he should have studied the texts which deal with the universe, understanding the universe. So the Sanskrit word used for that qualification is Shrotriyam. Shrotriyam means one who is well versed in the scriptures. He should not only have the knowledge, but he should also have the skill to communicate the teaching. Then only he becomes a teacher. Without the skill, there is no use because he can't communicate. If you have the skill but you don't have the knowledge, then what will you teach? So the two important qualifications of a guru or a teacher is, number one, he should have studied the scriptures. Number two, he should have the skill to communicate. So with that, we complete the topic number 1 of this text, which is from verse number 1 to verse number 47. Now we come to the second very important section of this text. The student, if you see this verse number 48, it says, the disciple is asking to their teacher, here I would like to ask a few questions. Oh, master, kindly listen to me. I have a few questions to ask you. And hearing their answers from your lips, I shall feel entirely blessed and gratified. What a beautiful way the student approaches a teacher. He doesn't order the teacher. He doesn't say, come on, oh Guru, come on, can you tell me, can you give me these answers? He puts it in a very, very polite way. Says, if I can know the answers from you, I will be entirely blessed. I'll be gratified. And what are the questions he asks? That is in verse number 49. In Sanskrit, if you want to learn, it is ko nama bandha kathamesha agataha katham pratishtasya katham vimokshaha ko savanatma paramaka atma tayor viveka kathametyachutam. What indeed, the first, okay, let's go through the 7 questions. What is the way he has asked these questions is in a different order than what I have put here. I put it in a nutshell in the way the teacher answers it. So the first question is, what is bondage? How is this bondage come? How does it continue to exist? How can one get out of it completely? What is this not self? Not self means anatma. Who is the supreme self? That means Brahman. And what is the process of discrimination between atma and anatma? These are the 7 questions which he is asking. And the answers to these questions is this text from verse number 72 to 209. This is the crux of the entire Vivekchudamani. So, if I am a seeker, I should have similar questions in my mind if I want to have the freedom from the problems faced in life. Let's look at what is Atma. First definition of Atma. Atma is real, I, which is of the nature of Chaitanyam consciousness. These are the answers to the question. This is how the teacher answers the questions. What is Atma? Atma is real. For those who have studied the Tattva Bodha, Atma is, again, I repeat, not the 3 bodies, gross, subtle, and causal. It is not the 5 koshas, the 5 dresses which we wear. the food sheath, that means the Annamaya Kosha. We will study all that in detail when we do the 70 verses. But here, I just want to remind you the Tattva portion of what is Atma. It is beyond the 5 koshas, the 5 Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya. These are the 5 koshas. So, and what is beyond these 3 states of consciousness: waking, dream, and sleep? To that, the teacher says Atma is of the nature of consciousness, Chaitanya. And what is this consciousness? This is very important to understand. This consciousness is not a part or a product or property of the body. That's the first lesson we all must learn when we want to understand who am I. I am pure consciousness. And this consciousness is not a part of the body. I don't need to separate consciousness from the body, because it is always there, and it is not a, so the moment I say that I am not the body, that is enough, and I only say I am not a part of the body, not a product of the body, not a property of the body. And what are the properties of the body? Body is fat, body is thin, body is sick, body is healthy. These are the properties of the body. The products of the body, the parts of the body, hands, legs, eyes, these are all different parts of the body, the limbs of the body. So consciousness is none of this. Consciousness is not a part, it is a separate entity. It's a second aspect we should know about this Atma or consciousness. Atma is also called as Chaitanyam or consciousness. For those who are listening first time, Atma means my real self. It is also known as, the nature of Atma is Chaitanyam. Chaitanyam means pure consciousness. For example, you say you are conscious, I will say I am conscious. And it is because of this consciousness, I'm able to hear, I'm able to see. You are able to see, you are able to hear, you are able to walk, you are able to run, you are able to grasp things with your hands. So the whole principle by which the body acts is the principle of consciousness. Without consciousness, the body is absolutely inert. It's exactly like a table or a chair. It cannot talk. It cannot say, I am. It cannot think. So what thinks in this body is the consciousness, the principle by which we all think, the principle by which we all hear, the principle by which we all see. The eyes are only an instrument, but the power behind the eyes is consciousness. The power behind the ears is consciousness. The power behind the tongue to speak or to taste is consciousness, the power. While I'm telling you this itself, you should be able to realize that consciousness. It is not a part of the body. The entire realization happens according to the acharyas. They say Shravanam gives direct realization. While I'm talking, while you are listening, you should be able to realize this consciousness. And this consciousness is an independent entity. It is not limited by the size of the body. It is all pervading. It is not limited to this body. It is through this consciousness I am listening. It's the same consciousness you're speaking, or I am speaking, you are listening. So it is one consciousness. And what happens to this consciousness? Was it there before the birth of the body? Yes, it was there before the birth of the body. It will be there after the death of the body, and it will survive. It is there right now in all of us. It's because of this consciousness the ears are hearing. Why don't we see this consciousness after the death of the body? Because the surviving consciousness always requires a medium, the medium of the body, by which you can say that the consciousness is there. Consciousness does not have a mouth to say I am. Consciousness is there, is always there, but like for example, what is the difference between a body which is alive and a body which is dead? Is that consciousness is still there, but the mind which was reflecting the consciousness in a live person, that inner instrument, that's what we call it as a linga sharira, which was reflecting the consciousness, which was manifesting the consciousness in the body, that has left the body. Therefore, the surviving consciousness can't be contacted. But then that consciousness, reflected consciousness will take another body. That is what the scriptures teach us. So the first portion is that what is the nature of this consciousness? We have to remember these 5 points whenever we think about who am I? What is this Atma? And these 5 points, it must go into our subconscious mind. It is just not listening once and then, if I ask the same question after two months, suppose you say, I've forgotten all this, but, it has to go deep inside the mind. We all function with our conscious mind. It has to go to the subconscious level. And that is why we say that after studying, we must also reflect, because the reflection will take the ideas deep inside our intellect. What is the definition of anatma? That is the second question which he asked. What is anatma? Anatma means not atma. And we can say the definition, we can describe the anatma from 2 angles. One is from the nature. That means we can say body has a sharira trayam. That means we can say it is got sthula shariram, sukshma shariram, and karana shariram. We have studied sthula means gross body, sukshma means subtle body, and karana means causal body. Gross body we all know. Sukshma sharira means the mind and the entire powers of the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, the 5 pranas. The powers behind this is the subtle body, mind and intellect. 17 organs are there in the Sukshma Shariram. Karana Shariram is just a body of ignorance. For this is what we experience in our sleep state. So we can define anatma with reference, this is all with reference to the jiva, with reference to the individual. With reference to the body, 3 types. With reference to the functions, we call it 5 koshas. Functions are what? If you are doing, if it's a function means of doing, acting, this, that, the gross body is the Annamaya kosha. Annamaya kosha means it is born out of the food sheath, the first dress. The second is the pranas, the energy level. At the energy level, the pranas, the 5 pranas, which are the physiological functions in the body, these are all anatma. It is not atma. We have studied first what is atma, which is not a part of the body. Now we are studying what is the body and how do we define, how do we see the body as such. So the third layer, the third dress which we have is emotions, manomaya kosha. Then vijnanamaya kosha means it is the doer in us, the ego factor. And Anandamaya Kosha means the happiness or the dress which we wear in our sleep state. So with reference to the functions of the body, we can say that there are 5 koshas, but all of them are inert. They are inert material. Then Shankaracharya also defines, I have not put it here, anatma also means it can be defined by way of 3 states of consciousness: waking, dream, and sleep. He says that, but I have not inserted here. But those of you who have studied the Tattvabodha, that it also can be, anatma can also be divided into 3 states of consciousness. The third question asked by the student is, what is bondage? This is a very important question and a good answer. We must all think about what is this, because this is the crux why we all come to this spiritual study. Mistaking inert body, anatma, as myself and having individuality based on this body is called as bandha. Bandha in Sanskrit means bondage. So what is this bondage? The bondage is identification that the body is me. Very important definition. All of us, we have this bondage. We all know, we all feel that I am this body. I am 50 years old, I am 30 years old, I am young, I am old. But this all belongs to the anatma. It is not the atma. It is not that awareness principle. Awareness principle is different than the body. So bondage is identifying the body as me. And what is freedom? Identifying I am the consciousness, awareness principle. That is freedom. So all our biodata which we have is all bandha. It is good for the transactional life, but it is not good to know who am I. We must be very clear. See, in our transactions, we require a biodata. I am so-and-so, I have studied this, I have 5 years experience. All that is very, very important in our transactions. But when it comes to asking the question, who really am I? Then we have to take this teaching. I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am not the ego. We will study later on in other texts how this ego comes into this body. Very, very beautiful text called as Sat Darshanam. I'm digressing a little bit, but just to tell you, there are other texts which deal with this ego factor. All of us, we have the ego. I am this, I am that. So there is a wonderful saint in India called as Ramana Maharishi, who has written this wonderful text called as Sat Darshanam. There he teaches how, a very, very deep text, if you want to know the mind, how it functions, that one text is very beautiful, which I will be taking for this Wednesday class group. After I have finished, maybe in about 2 months' time, I will, maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I will take that text. How the ego comes into this body, how the ego goes away. Very, very beautiful text which teaches us is called Sat Darshana. Coming back to bondage. So this ego is a bondage for us. this entity which connects the Atma with this body, that is called as the ego. And it is this ego in us which gives us the feeling that I am this body. Suppose this ego was not there, Atma is ever there, body is coming and going, it's inert, then consciousness is ever there. So what, then we are not talking about the entire universe at all. One is inert, another is conscious. Purely consciousness, it doesn't have anything of the universe in it. Inert cannot see, cannot know by itself. It needs sentiency from something. So there will be no universe at all. What connects both of them is the ego, the reflected consciousness. How does it come? How does it go? That is a very, very deep study in understanding this bondage. Anatmani Atma Buddhi Bandhaha. It's very simple. In the Anatma, having the notion that I am that Atma, Anatma is called as Bandhaha. What is the cause? The fourth question asked by the student is, what is the cause of bondage? Any mistake which we do, for example, if we see a rope and we think it is, we see a snake on instead of a rope, it's because of the ignorance of the rope. I see a snake, rope snake. Similarly, what the teacher says is, because I don't know that I am that pure awareness consciousness principle, I mistake myself to be this body. I mistake myself to be this mind. I mistake myself to be this ego, which is not a real entity. It just comes and goes because of the reflection. Like a reflection will come in a mirror automatically when the mirror is there, when the mind mirror is there, the reflection of the consciousness will come. And then it is there for some time and then it will go away. So what here it says is because of the ignorance about the Atma, there is a bondage in this body. The self mistakes, here self is mistake, is called as a self-ignorance. The self-mistake, that means I don't know my Atma, the self, that mistake is called as self-ignorance. I don't know that I am different than the body, which is consciousness, and I mistake body as myself. That is the cause of the bondage is ignorance. Ignorance about Atma. What is moksha? Moksha is simple. The moment I know that I am not the body and I am the consciousness, that is called as freedom. Destruction of the mistake, which is the destruction of the ignorance about this Atma, is moksha. How do I get this? How do I destroy this ignorance? By using the scriptures, which will show me my real self. I am not the body, who am I? I am the consciousness, different. And I am, first of all, we should know it's different than the body. Second is we should know that it is all pervading. All pervading means it is there all the time, all the places. It's eternal. That is my real nature. So giving up the deha abhimana, that means giving up the identification of the body, is called as moksha. How to correct this mistake is by the discrimination born out of jnanam, which is the knowledge of the Atma. That is the only means of liberation. It's very important to know this fact that The scriptures, the scriptural study is the only way I will know my real nature. There is no other way. You cannot just sit in meditation and say, keep on asking the question without the knowledge of the scriptures. Who am I? Who am I? You cannot ask this question because you will not get the answer. It is not an automatic thing which will happen. So the only way this will happen is by studying the scriptures properly, methodology, by using a correct step-by-step process of understanding the scriptures. And then also asking a question, am I really the body or something else? And what are the methodologies which are used in the scriptures? One very important method is called as Drigdrishya Viveka. That means, I'm explaining to you here the method below. I am different from whatever I experience. This is a very, very important and a powerful tool. I'm now describing to you the methodology to discriminate Atma and Anatma. Atma and the body, consciousness and the mind, consciousness and the body. How do I discriminate? The first thing I should note is that I am different from whatever I experience. If I'm experiencing the body, I'm not the body. If I experience a car, I'm not the car. If I experience a tree or a building or whatever it is all inert. So we are talking about all inert things I experience. I experience the entire inert world, yeah, not sentient world, inert world. I'm now discriminating. I am the sentiency, I am the consciousness, and experiencer is the consciousness. Experienced is the inert object, the world. So I am the experiencer, the world, body, mind are the anatma, are the inert universe. World is far away, body is closer, and the mind is the closest. Like we use contact lens, almost inside, almost on top of the eyes, and they are very, very intimately close to the eyes. I use the spectacles, but they are not integral part of me. It is an instrument. Similarly, body and mind is an instrument for Atma. To realize, to experience the world, and then for some time, and then Atma doesn't have that experience. So the body and mind are basically instruments of the jiva, of the soul which is there in this body. And Atma and Atma, Viveka, this difference, the moment I come to know that the experiencer consciousness is different than the inert body, then our knowledge is very firm about who am I. Very important point, because this is a fundamental point of the entire scriptural study, that consciousness is predominant. Matter depends on consciousness, whereas science says exactly the opposite. It says matter is predominant, consciousness is a part of matter. Consciousness is a part of mind, it's a consciousness, a part of the brain, but Vedanta says completely opposite. The final last question was, what nourishes the bondage? What is the reinforcing factor for this bondage? Why do I feel that I am bound all the time? Right from birth till date, I feel I am bound. At the same time, I feel that there is something which is not changed in me. Two things are there. One, which has not changed. I know there is some factor, which is basically the consciousness. It has not changed at all. I keep repeating it during the youth, during young age, during middle age, all the time it is still the same, one changeless factor. which is the experiencer Atma. And then what is this bondage and why it is continuing? That is the question of the student. What nourishes bondage is basically our identification with our mind, our identification with this body again and again as me. That is what nourishes the bondage. The moment I get this knowledge that I am that pure consciousness, then what happens is this identification gradually it comes down. Because the more I hear the scriptures, the more I understand that I am that pure consciousness and I am not the inert body, then what happens is I gradually become more and more conscious and I can live whole day as pure consciousness. This happens when the ignorance that I am consciousness, that ignorance, once it goes away, that the fact that I am the body will drop away by itself. So all the 7 questions are answered by the teacher. But there is one problem, and the problem is what? Drik and Drishya. Drishya means seen. Drik means seer. Are there 2 things in this universe? The seer and the seen, are there 2 things in the universe? That question is not answered so far. That question is answered by Mahavakya Vichar, which comes in verses 210 to 253. Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. Aikya Jnanam, this is called as oneness. The study of oneness between the totality, which is called as Paramatma, and the individuality, which is called as Jivatma. How does this oneness happen? This is described in Chandogya Upanishad. In many Upanishads, we see this oneness described. In fact, the central essence of each Upanishad is this oneness, to reveal this oneness, to reveal that there is one common factor, which is called as consciousness, between me and this world. Between the entire universe, there is one constant, one entity, which is called as consciousness, which is the substratum for the whole universe, not only this body, not only my body, your body, another person's body, but it is a substratum for the whole universe. This uniqueness of this Mahavakya teaching is a very subtle teaching. It takes it requires a prepared mind, a mind which is not gross, a mind which is prepared by meditation. Because to say that I am the observer and the world is not existing without me, the observer, it requires a prepared mind. We need to make our mind more and more subtle, more and more sensitive. So as I was telling you, Drik Drishya Viveka, I know I am Chaitanyam, sentient consciousness, everything else is inert. World and inert, there are 2, world is inert, which is observed. The Drik, I am the Drik, Drik means the seer. The process of Drik and Drishya is incomplete, and this process of the observed and the observer is called as Dvaita. Dvaita means what? There are 2 things. I am the seer and there is a seen. The world is seen. I am the consciousness which is seeing the world, which is seeing the body, which is seeing the mind, and which is seeing the entire universe. what the scriptures are telling us is the Dvaita principle, that means duality is not the truth of the universe. The truth of the universe is singularity, non-duality. It is called as Advaitam. So Dvaitam is always at one level of our experience. Throughout our waking state, we will always be thinking, I am different and the world is different. But what happens into our sleep state? What happens there is, it is resolved. This duality is resolved. There is only one principle called as consciousness in our sleep state, deep sleep state. Therefore, we have to rise to that higher level, which is called as Paramarthika level. The higher level, the higher me. I have a higher nature, which is called as consciousness. That consciousness is the higher level of my own nature. It is me itself. And it can exist all by itself. It is independent. So what the scriptures teach us is that what exists independently, which so far I have called it as consciousness, here the Upanishad says, gives a new word to it. The new word is called as Brahman. So what is Brahman? Brahman is I without the gross body, without the subtle body, without the causal body. I without the waking state, without the dream state, without the sleep state. What is Brahman? I without the 5 koshas, the 5 dresses which I wear. And what happens to the universe? Universe is also called as Brahman. Because in the universe also there is a gross universe which I see in the waking state. There is a subtle universe which I see in the dream state. And there is a causal universe which I see in the sleep state. Causal universe is nothing else but ignorance. Ignorance means what? It is avidya vritti. Avidya vritti means what? There is a thought in the mind which says there is nothing. Complete blankness. And that mind which says that there is nothing, who is witnessing that? That is being witnessed by this entity which is called as Brahman or Atma. We use the word Brahman when we look at the entire universe. And when we look at our own individual body, we use the term Atma. So what the Upanishads teach us is that this Brahman, this consciousness exists by itself, and it is the cause of this entire universe to come. This is a higher level, this is a subtle level, this is taught in the Upanishads, but Vivekchudamani brings that here to teach that at a junior level. For us, he teaches us that Brahman is the ultimate essence of this whole universe. And the description of that is very simple. I said, without the 3 sharirams, you and I can easily experience this. Experience means what? Have the knowledge. Because I exist in sleep. And how do I exist is what is being described here as pure consciousness. And that Brahman is called as Karanam. Now, what we'll understand is, I am the observer, I am the cause. As observer, I am the cause. Therefore, I am observer is Drik Drishya Viveka. The moment I say that Drik, I am the cause of this universe, then I, seer, has been elevated to a cause. Then what happens to the status of the world? The world is taken as Drishyam, which is seen. And Drishyam means it is seen, it is a Karyam. Karyam means what? Effect. Like gold and ornaments. Gold is the Karanam, the cause. And the Karyam means effect is a chain, bangle, ring. Similarly, this Brahman, which is beyond the three states, beyond the five koshas, beyond the three bodies. That Brahman you must remember. Don't bring in the topic of body or mind, because then you will get confused. So the teaching of Vivekchudamani is the discrimination between the body, mind, and Brahman. Body, mind, and Atma, world and Brahman. There is only one entity which is common between the body and this universe. That we just give a term, it's just a name. In the religious parlance, we call the same Brahman as God. God is nothing except this what has been described so far as Atma. So this Brahman, or if I identify that is me, the real truth, then I can say I am the Karanam, world is Karya. So I am establishing a new relationship with the world as pure consciousness. And what is that? Karya Karanam, that is the relationship between cause and effect. So this is the second level of teaching. The first level was very simple. 7 questions, then they ask the question and answer is over. The second part, is, first part is Atma and Anatma discrimination. The second part is converting that Atma into a cause, elevating the Atma. That is what is mentioned here. Some of you may find that these are ideas which are a little difficult to understand, but if you go through the video again, listen more number of times, go through these notes, you will find, once you have listened it properly, you will find it is easy. You go through this again at a later point of time. This text is a very beautiful text. If you are able to understand the nuances, the subtle aspects of this text, then who am I? What is this universe? All these questions can be answered very easily. The study of Upanishads becomes easy. The study of Bhagavad Gita becomes easy. The study of any scriptures becomes easy. Okay. So now we have seen I am the seer consciousness and the world is seen. Conversion of Drik-Drishya Sambandha into Karana Karya Sambandha is the function of Mahavakyam. I said Mahavakyam will tell you, Mahavakyam is sentences like Tattvamasi, you are that. You are that means what? You are that Brahman. You are that pure consciousness. Aham Brahmasmi. Aham Brahmasmi means what? I am that Brahman. What is that Brahman? Which is beyond the 3 states, beyond the 3 sharirams, and beyond the 5 koshas, which is the substratum for the body and mind. It is also the substratum for the whole universe. That is, in Sanskrit, in the Upanishads, they use a terminology for that, which is called as Brahman. So, Aham Brahmasmi means what? I am that pure consciousness. I am that pure existence principle. And once I know that I am that, what happens then? All the thoughts of agitations in my mind, slowly they will start coming down. All the sorrows in my life, the more and more I identify with that truth about myself, which I have just now described as Brahman, what happens then is all my identification with the mind slowly reduces. What is the benefit of this knowledge? Since I know I am Karanam and world is Karyam, then what is a corollary of this fact? Karyam cannot exist separate from Karanam. How do I explain this? Ring, bangle, chain. They are effects. They are the Karyam. They can't exist separate from Karanam, separate from gold. If I, from a ring or a bangle, if I remove the Karanam, the gold, what happens? The substance itself is gone. There's no more ring in the if I remove the gold. Suppose I remove only the name and form, I retain the gold. What happens? The substratum gold remains, and then the name and form of that gold goes away. Similarly, what happens to the universe? Universe, according to Chandogya Upanishad, says Vacharam Namadeyam. That means the whole world is nothing but name and form. So from the world, if I just remove from the, what is world? World is nothing else, consciousness plus the name and form. So I am Uma. I am Uma, when I say what it means, it is consciousness plus the form of the body plus the name, Uma. I am Rohit. Again, it is just the form of the body plus a name. Consciousness is the substratum. It always is. For you, the consciousness, for me also the same. So that is what is the corollary. This is how we have to slowly understand myself and also understand the world. How do I understand this cause and effect? Dream. Let's look at the dream. Observed dream can't exist separate from the observer I, the consciousness. Similarly, waking world is like a dream. It does not exist separate from the observer Karanam, which is consciousness. In waking, dream, and sleep, there is one factor which is common. And what is that? Consciousness. In the waking state, I am consciousness. In the dream state, I am consciousness. I am conscious of the mind, mind's projection. In the sleep state, I am consciousness. I am conscious of the ignorance of this universe. That's all. There is a thought in the mind which says the universe is blank, is nothing. I am still aware of that blankness. Therefore, consciousness is common. Previously, it was Drik Drishya Viveka. Now, I learn to say that there is no more duality, but there is only one non-dual Brahman. This is a very, very important lesson for us if we want to realize the spiritual truth. Aham Brahmasmi means it is Advaitam. Advaitam means it is non-dual consciousness. Clay and pot. Pot is nothing else but clay. Ornaments are nothing but gold. Furniture is all nothing but wood. The whole universe is nothing but consciousness, which is the observer I. Observer I is the Karanam, the cause. The world is the effect. So I convert this whole world and consciousness, the sambandha, the relationship between the two is Karya Karana Sambandha. If two words have two separate substances, you should be able to remove the pot from clay, but you can't. What it means is the pot itself is clay and it is nothing else but clay. It is only a name given to the pot. Similarly, world and me are not two substances. It's only one consciousness, one substance. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there's a very beautiful verse. And it says that that all this is nothing else but the self, which is pure consciousness. And whoever who sees there is a difference between me and the world, between me and another person, he doesn't look at the world. He doesn't have a proper understanding of the world. So a person who has realized this, in Taittiriya Upanishad, there's a verse which says that the entire verse is nothing but me alone. I am like that luminous sun in which everything appears. Similarly, consciousness is the one substance because of which the body appears, because of which the universe appears. So what is the reason? Because between me and world there is a karya karana sambandha. Therefore, there is no duality, but only one non-dual Brahman. This is explained in the beautiful verse in Kaivalya Upanishad also. Mayeva sakalam jatam, mai sarvam pratishtitam, mai sarvam layam yati, that brahmatma avyayam. So I am that. See, when you look at I as that consciousness principle, we can easily say that the whole world is coming from that consciousness. It exists in that consciousness and it goes back to that consciousness. So the function of the Mahavakya is converting the seer-seen relationship into cause-effect relationship. So the spiritual study we undertake in two stages. First, we do this in our own minds. We have to go through the study. We have to reflect on it in our own minds in this way. First, I separate the Atma, that means consciousness, and the world. World is inert, I am consciousness. Then that is one stage. First stage, Drik Drishya, seer and see. The second stage is, now I say, world is effect, karyam, like the bangle. And the seer is the karanam, consciousness. The effect cannot be there without the cause. Therefore, without consciousness, there is no world. What is there is ultimately one truth, which is called as consciousness. You can call it consciousness, you can call it God, you can call it I, you can call it whatever it is, but these are all just names. But the principle of Vivekchudamani is combining Drik Drishya, the two methodologies we use to understand in realizing I am the truth principle, I am that consciousness principle. Like I said, this methodology is initially, for those who are listening first time, it's mind-boggling. You will not, the intellect is not ready to absorb this knowledge. But as we listen to the scriptures more and more, as we study more texts, and we go deeper and deeper into this consciousness, then everything becomes very easy. One day you will accept this teaching as the ultimate truth, and that day you'll be saying, I have absolutely no sorrow because I'm not the mind. That's all. You learn how to drop your mind as a lower entity. It will still continue, but you will be able to say, I am not the mind. At the heart of hearts, you can say, I am that Atma. This Atma has got no form, it has no caste, it has got no creed, it's got no all that will be explained beautifully in the meditation verses. The topic number 4 is 254, verse number 417 verses. And this is the Samadhi Abhyasa. This is just the internalization or assimilation of the teaching. Soaking in the teaching. Saturating myself in the knowledge. Hearing, reading, teaching, they are all a part of this mananam. That means when I assimilate, for example, if you start writing notes of these lectures, this is like a internalization process, and it will help you to remove the confusions which your intellect has. Slowly the confusions will go away. That is what is called as mananam. The last portion is Nididhyasanam, which is from 418 to 478, topic number 5. here what I do is, it's a internalization, means I try to tell myself I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, but I am Atma. You learn to say this in the seat of meditation. And what will happen then? The frequency of all my problems will come down. Negative reactions, that will come down. The intensity of negative reactions will also come down. That means the intensity. Previously I used to be angry for 15 days, over some issue. But now, because of this wonderful knowledge, I'm able to realize more and more about this Atma being my real nature. Therefore, the intensity of the anger comes down. Intensity of reactions comes down. Negative reactions. Recovery period, that means I come back. Suppose I'm affected by something, I quickly come back and I am able to regain my balance. These are all the benefits of the knowledge. With this, I will stop here. It's 8 o'clock. And I will continue this maybe for 1, 2, 3. I don't know how long I'm going to take, because, I'm just trying to bring this entire study of 581 verses into this compact sessions. So I will continue from the benefit, this particular slide, number 15. I will continue next week. After that, we will go through the meditation verses. These are the meditation verses, 254 to 266. And these are the meanings of the verses, which is not this particular slide I wrote today. I will circulate it when it comes. These are the meanings of the 10 verses of meditation. And so 254 to 266 is all the meditation verses. Then the 70 verses. Now, these are the top 70 verses of Vivekchudamani. I've given the verse numbers, the original text, what is the verse number in this? And I've given some simple meanings so that you can quickly, if you want to revise this text, you can easily see this and then go straight to that verse if you want to see the real meaning of that. I do plan to take these verses in a quick fashion. I don't have any notes for each verse. So what I will be doing in maybe 2 or 3 sessions, I will try to complete this 70 verses, even if it takes 4 times, because by going through these verses, it'll be a quick revision of just the meaning of these verses. It'll be a quick revision of the whole text which I have just presented to you today. Okay, so this is my overall plan for probably the next 3 sessions. We will just continue this Vivekchudamani, the top 70 verses, and this is the way it goes. And once we just go through, there will not be any meaning. Normally in the notes I have a lot of other meanings for each verse. So this is going to be a pure summary. We will take 3-4 sessions to finish these verses, and then we will go on to a new text. Okay, so I will stop here. I will close the class, and then if there are any questions, I will just take a few, maybe 10 minutes to answer the questions. Let's close the class with the prayers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnahat Purnamudacchade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. let me see if the chat box, if you have any questions there. There are 13 questions, I can see it. Okay, we'll go through these questions one by one. From Jagdish, what is the difference between Anatma and Jiva? Very, very good question. Anatma means the inert body, inert mind, not the sentient mind, but inert mind. Jiva means the same body and mind with reflected consciousness. For example, when I get up from sleep, the first thing which happens is the consciousness gets reflected in the mind. So that consciousness with the mind is called as Jiva. Anatma is inert body, inert mind. But the same mind, when it becomes consciousness, it becomes conscious in the waking state, that is called as Jiva. The same mind, when it becomes conscious in the dream, it becomes a Jiva. The Jiva is always with the mind and reflected consciousness. And consciousness is totally separate. That means in consciousness, there are no Jivas. In consciousness is purely all alone itself. This you will learn more and more from the Upanishads. The difference between exactly what the Jiva is and what is this mind or body which is inert in nature, we will learn more and more, because initially it is difficult to understand, because the concept of reflected consciousness I need to teach the group. It comes in higher texts. It comes also slowly in other texts which we will be doing. So as of now, the main thing to understand, Jagdish, is that Jiva means it is with the mind. Consciousness with the mind. That is the definition of Jiva. That is the same thing as the ego, what we call as the ego I. Then the ego I is the Jiva which uses the body and then experiences the world. The Jiva can exist without the body. But the Jiva cannot exist without consciousness. That reflected consciousness is always required for the Jiva to survive. There are a lot of knowledge regarding this from Upanishads. It will talk more and more about it. But at this stage, I think that's all I can say. The second question is, Deepak, Jiva is Anatma. Jiva is not Anatma. Jiva is consciousness, the reflected consciousness. Anatma means the pure mind itself. Okay, let me open up. Let me answer all the questions, and then the people who have still not satisfied, you can call me, or I can try to explain further after the questions are answered. I will quickly answer all questions. Okay, so this is clear. Jiva is Anatma. Jiva is Anatma, that's what Deepak was saying. It is not Anatma. I said Jiva ultimately realizes that it is that Sakshi. So Jiva is the one which is in problems. It identifies with the body as itself. It comes to know that it is not the body. It need not identify with the body. It is originally, it is only that consciousness. That is what is called as freedom. What is the relationship between seer and seen? Seer and seen, unless the seen is there, then only we can talk about the seer. So the relationship between seer and seen is is the relationship, the way I can only say is the seer is the consciousness and the seen is drishyam. Drishyam is always inert, seer is always sentient. Seer can exist by itself, the seen is dependent on the consciousness. That means the body and mind are dependent on consciousness. Consciousness is not dependent on body and mind. It can exist by itself. The only thing is it will not be aware of this body and mind. It exists itself. That is what the scriptures are teaching us. Deepak is saying it is of the subject and object. Okay, that is one way of saying the seer is the subject, the seen is the object. Mind, body, universe are mere object of experience. The witness, observer, seer, drishta. Okay, that is what Deepak is answering Jagdish's question. Okay. Then, what are the positive logics of Atma instead of saying I am not the body, mind, intellect? What is the logic here? Okay. This is again a good question, Jagdish. The logic is basically it's only the scriptures that I am Atma, I am not body mind. Is only the proof for that is only the scriptures. The Upanishads tell me that I am that Atma. And it also teaches me how I can realize this Atma as myself. See, whatever I'm teaching here, each one of us can experience this in himself or herself as Atma. Neti Neti through negation, Sakshi is the same as witness. Yes, you're right. Sakshi and witness is same. Through Neti Neti, that, okay, through this process called as Neti, I am not the body, I am not the mind. Through that process, you can come to the level of Atma. Then, is Linga Shariram the pure consciousness? Malati is asking. Yes, it is. The Linga Shariram is not the pure consciousness. Linga Shariram is the subtle body. The 17 parts which I discussed earlier, the subtle body is called as Linga Shariram. Consciousness is Chaitanya. It is separate. The Linga Shariram is powered. Is the power behind the Linga Shariram is the consciousness. So Lingam means it is the power behind the gross body. It is the indicator that the body is alive because of Linga Shariram. Linga Shariram is the 5 senses, the powers of seeing, the powers of touching, all that is Linga Shariram, the power. But consciousness is different. Chaitanyam is different than the subtle body. Subtle body is still matter. We must understand subtle body is still matter. So we have both the jiva and the pure consciousness within us. Yes, you're right. Initially, this is how we say. When we say we have jiva and atma, that means we can say that pure consciousness, which is called as Paramatma, and the Jivatma, which is identified with the mind and body. We have two aspects in this body. That Jiva is the one which it has been identifying with the mind. It learns through the scriptures that it is not the mind. It joins the pure consciousness. It joins the Paramatma. What I will do is I will open up I'll unmute everybody so that in case you have some questions, you can just come back to me with your questions. In case I have not answered anybody in fully, you can come back and talk to me on the phone directly either today or tomorrow, or send me a WhatsApp. We can fix and I can discuss each your questions very more deeply.
Shikaji.
Yeah, tell me, Shama.
Namaste. Thank you. It's the most wonderful and most the difficult subject that you have taken, and I'm ever so grateful that you are doing it for us, you know, to actually do this for us. I actually just managed to write down my question, and it's back to the level 1 of stage 1, to how do I establish myself that moksha or liberation is my real ultimate goal? Because as you have said, it seems like the only reason that we at all look for moksha or decide to wake up from our so-called sleep and dream state of Maya is because we are actually seeking freedom from the tyrannies of the mind, as you very beautifully described it, which means actual suffering. So had it not been for the dukkha, we would probably continue to stay in our state of prayers, you know, living a life of pleasures and not really seeking a life of shreyas or what is good for us. So I just want to make sure that I am understanding it correctly, that this is the only reason why some of us, not all of us, some of us will decide to wake. And the reason why I also ask this question is quite often because I feel very aware that this is such an important question. Yet when in my normal day-to-day life, I happen to address it to other people, it almost seems like, you know, I am stalking something very strange. So just some clarification.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Shama, your question has a very, very deep understanding of the subject. So I should congratulate you on this deep understanding of Dukkham. See, in almost all the Upanishads I have read, almost every Upanishad, it says that people come to Guru only because of Dukkham, only because they have suffered sorrow in life. And
Okay.
even if you have not suffered sorrow till say age 40 or 50, or you know, what really people are is why they come to this bondage and why they come to moksha is because they see that they are not permanent. You see, they see death, they see old age, they see suffering due to old age, not their own old age, but they can see other people around. Though they can even see that yes, my body is also going to get old, my body is also going to have a disease. I don't know what type of disease I'm going to have, but this causes insecurity, the fear of insecurity, the fear of death. And this is what pulls people to understand that why am I born? Am I born to suffer like this? Some disease, some corona, some cancer, some Parkinson's, some breathing disorders. Is this why? Why am I supposed to? Why am I born then? Because if I had all sukham, for example, in heaven, uh, they say that you can have a ageless body in heaven, in the sense that you are ever 18. So you can, even in heaven, the problem with the heaven, the story background is that it comes to an end because your punyam is over. So your fundamental question is, people will come to realize or get into this moksha only when they start feeling inadequacy and they will feel insecurity in life. This is a fundamental human problem. I feel there is something which tells me that I am always there, but at the same time, I'm seeing that I will not be there. This is called as Maya.
And also, I just wondered whether, you know, this desire to know, because since as a little child, I wanted to know. And then you
Yes.
think there is so much to know. And ultimately, you realize all that you know and all that can be known of the paroksha world is not good enough, because there's a limit to what you can know in
There
the
is
paroksha.
limitations. Yes, there is
So,
limitations to.
so it's very distressing to just realize that there is this limited world is not good enough to be known.
Yes,
So
yes,
you
you are
want to
right.
know what, yeah.
These
So
limitations, these limitations in this universe is what
yeah.
drives us for moksha.
Yes, 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 yes.
Limited
And all,
body, limited time. We are all limited by the conditions of time,
and
conditions of
also
place.
and also the desire to possess. For instance, before coming to UK, and I was in India, and I used to think, oh, this is very nice, that is very nice, until I actually walked on the streets of Oxford Street, and I thought that is madness, you know, because for a small little item you will have 1,000 flavors, and you think, goodness me, this just doesn't make sense, you know, that even if you have, and there's this beautiful description of, even if the universe, you could wrap it up, put it under your arms and walk, the desire will still not be over of how much you want. So
Yeah,
in other
correct.
words, the paroksha world is very, very limited. So there must
Yes.
be some unlimited knowledge somewhere else, the
Yes,
aparoksha.
yeah, we are
So,
all searching for that aporoksha jnanam. We are all searching for that infinite in us. It is
so
there.
I'm just trusting what is there in the scriptures, that there
Yes.
is something, the knowledge of the Atman, which is the limitless.
Yeah,
So
this
I'm
answers the question of Jagdish also, that ultimately we have to take the scriptures and use that as the final.
excellent. Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. So grateful. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sekhaji,
Bolo,
Sekhaji,
why?
as your topic one says, liberation and moksha, is it the ultimate goal of life?
Yes, correct. The ultimate goal, you see, what happens is initially we want money because we want to have some comfort in life. So, in order to have a comfortable living, we need a house, we need to earn money for my family, for the future. I need to save something for my old age, and so on. So that is our initial part. Then you see, our mind keeps on liking certain things, and it wants to fulfill the likes. I like a rasagulla. I like good food. These are all desire fulfillment. So once these two things are over, that means when you are earned money and we have also experienced the world of desires, fulfillment, then what happens is then you feel there is not, still I'm not satisfied. That is where your moksha comes. Okay, there is something missing in life. I'm still not happy. Is there anything in life which will make me happy? That is called as moksha, and that is why you come and study the Bhagavad Gita, you study the scripture, you come and study Vivekchudamani.
But Sekhaji, as you were saying that, you see, liberation or moksha is just a temporary on heaven. Until
No, no,
certain
no,
time,
no,
they will
no,
come
no,
back, isn't
liberation.
it?
No, no, moksha is not temporary. Moksha is permanent. Heaven is temporary. See, Swarga is temporary. That means after my punyam is over, I will be brought back to the same Singapore again. Because my punyam is over, I have to come back to this life again. Again earn punyam, again go back. But moksha means what? I am not in the, I'm not identified with the body at all. I am the pure Atma. And that once I learn to understand I am pure Atma, that is called as final liberation from this
But
body.
it doesn't give us free from birth and death, right?
No, moksha will give you the freedom from birth and death. That is what is called as moksha. Moksha means I don't have any more rebirth. I will still be in the universe. I will, in the sense that the universe will depend on me for its rising and falling, but I am always free.
But
There is
earlier
no
we were,
rebirth. No rebirth is called as moksha.
told that we have to become one with the Creator.
Yeah,
Rather
see,
than moksha or
yeah,
liberation.
yeah, correct. See, becoming one with the creator is also called as moksha. But who is the creator? The creator cannot be somebody who is with form. It cannot be Lord Krishna with form. That is what we initially, all of us, we initially start our spiritual journey and we say that there is some Krishna or there is some Rama or there is some Shiva. I want to be one with him. But what the scripture says, that is only a stepping stone. The stepping stone is the ultimate, what we have to do is, we have to learn what is the nature of that Lord. And when we learn the nature of that Lord, it will teach us that his nature is formless. His nature is consciousness. Once I learn, yeah.
So we have to become one with the formless love.
Yes,
right?
you are right. Now you got it. You become one with formless. Yes, you are right. You got it.
So that is the goal of life.
Yes, that is the goal of life. That is moksha.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else has any question?
Shikaji, one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What nourishes the bondage?
Good question. You see, what nourishes bondage is our action. We keep on acting, we keep on fulfilling our desires without trying to know who is this person who is trying to fulfill the desire. So without knowledge, we just keep on acting and we keep on, creating punyam and papam and merit and demerit. Again, take another birth. Again, take another rebirth. So that is what nourishes ultimately is our karma, our action. And what frees us from this bondage is knowledge.
Is it the good and the bad?
Yeah, the good and the bad actions which we do, it nourishes the karma, it nourishes the bondage. Okay.
So how are the bondages destroyed?
Then you are asking exactly the same type of questions which the student is asking in this Vivekchudamani. I'm very glad you have picked up the knowledge. I'm very happy to see that you have picked up the knowledge. You see, how do we break this bondages? By knowledge. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of Atma. Or knowledge of that pure consciousness. The more I come to know what is this consciousness and try to realize that consciousness in me as me, then what will happen is this bondage will be destroyed.
That means through knowledge.
Yeah, that's right, through knowledge.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yeah, thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I will close the session today and then we'll continue next week from slide number 15.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shagaji.
Thank you.